After experiencing 5 consecutive months of declining prices, the U.S. housing market is collapsing rapidly due to the lowest mortgage application reading of the 21st century, and the quickest mortgage rate increase in modern American history. For many years, the house of cards has continued to decline as builders, real estate agents, loan officers, investors, and sellers celebrated while millions of young hopeful Americans watched as prices skyrocketed, making the American dream unattainable. The post-2020 real estate world will be written about for decades, showcasing greed, manipulation, and denial. Despite the new evidence indicating a future market crash, many people remain skeptical, having grown up in a world where real estate prices only increase. In fact, the National Case-Shiller Index has shown year-over-year price increases every year since 2011. This means that most people under the age of 37 have never experienced a real estate market where home values declined. Real estate has been a printing press for over a decade, providing a reliable way to get rich using socially accepted forms of extreme leverage. The question on everyone's mind now is whether this time is different and if we are heading towards a massive correction. To understand the current situation, we must go back to 2007 and compare it to the current crisis. While many people believe that this is nothing like the 2008 crash, the bad loan theory, which has been repeatedly echoed by the media for over 15 years, may be oversimplified and misunderstood. The 2008 crash was much more complex than what was portrayed publicly. The U.S. housing market is currently collapsing after 5 months of price decline, the lowest mortgage application reading in the 21st century, and the fastest mortgage rate increase in modern American history. The house of cards had been declining higher and higher for years as builders, real estate agents, loan officers, investors, and sellers celebrated while millions of young Americans watched as prices grew out of reach, turning the American dream into a nightmare. The post-2020 real estate world is one that will be written about for decades, showcasing greed, manipulation, and denial. Despite the new evidence hinting at a future market crash, many people are skeptical because they grew up in a world where real estate prices only go up. Real estate has been a printing press for over a decade, a reliable way to get rich using socially accepted forms of extreme leverage. However, with a massive correction looming, many people are wondering if this time is different. The role of investors and their abuse of the corrupt mortgage industry is often excluded from the media narrative about the 2008 financial crisis. Studies suggest that poor people and bad loans were not the primary source of the problem, but rather the investors, particularly mom and pop investors with property portfolios under a dozen units. In 2007, these investors dominated what the author calls the speculation market, pushing themselves into increasingly risky products in what researchers later called the mortgage arms race. When home prices are rapidly increasing, people are given the ability to leverage millions of dollars into an asset, resulting in a modern-day gold rush filled with people operating in a legal gray zone and fraud littered all over the place. Loan officers, agents, brokers, and others involved in the process are incentivized to get borrowers the money, regardless of their income, and will do everything in their power to make it work because they care only about their commission. As far as the borrower is concerned, they are just legally taking money from some sort of local bank and holding the house or houses for a year, to potentially make hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions. The media narrative about the crash of the mortgage industry often overlooks the role of investors and their abuse of the corrupt industry. Academic studies suggest that poor people and bad loans were not the main problem, but rather it was the investors who should take most of the blame, especially mom and pop investors with small property portfolios. These investors dominated the speculation market in 2007 and pushed themselves into increasingly risky products, in what was later called the mortgage arms race, a competition that drove people to the edge of capitalism. The entire system from top to bottom was corrupt, with fraud everywhere, but people didn't care as long as they made money. The system relied on leveraging millions of dollars into an asset, creating a modern-day gold rush. However, when prices collapsed, investors bailed and left a global crisis. The most recent run-up of the housing market is worse than what happened in the mid-2000s, with extreme investor speculation in hotbed cities. According to Redfin's quarterly investor report, investors purchased 45.8 WER homes in the fourth quarter of 2022, but investors remain deeply involved in residential real estate, with nearly 18% of all homes sold going to investors. Residential real estate investing has gotten out of control, and everyone wants to become a landlord, which is perceived to be the ticket to millions. However, this craze is probably even more destructive than what the graphs suggest, and no city is immune. If you live in a house with your family, you are more likely to keep paying your mortgage as you have much more at stake. Eviction is not an option for most families, so the bank sees your loan as less risky. However, the mortgage industry has not done much to separate regular people who just want to buy a home from investors who actively receive loans intended for regular people. This lack of differentiation even extends to government-sponsored programs like the FHA loan, which was created to help regular people get houses. Investors commonly commit mortgage fraud or use loopholes to participate, such as purchasing a triplex with an FHA loan and ignoring the occupancy requirement. There are thousands of these loopholes and tricks to leverage more money. If you want to understand just how common abuse, fraud, and tricks are, look no further than Matthew Cox, who committed mortgage fraud in 2006 and spent 13 years in prison. We don't know the exact number of investors in the market today, but evidence suggests that there is a noticeable change in prices due to investor activity. Greed pushed prices up dramatically, and now fear will cause prices to plummet.